welcome, beautiful Paris Saint Germain family. In today's video, we'll be talking about Kang In Lee and his current situation at Paris Saint Germain. But let's rewind back all the way to 2023. Paris Saint Germain had just signed Kang In Lee to Paris Saint Germain, contract valid until 2028 after his majestic performances for Mallorca in the Spanish division. 6 goals and 6 assists for Real Mallorca in La Liga was a great number. He was also the second best dribbler in La Liga that season, was by far Mallorca's best player, dominating in big chances created, average sofa score rating, total shots per game, goals and assists. And all of this obviously gave him the move to Paris Saint Germain. Even early on in preseason, Kang In Lee was showcasing his ability. He was telling us Paris Saint Germain fans that he is a baller and we should be excited to watch him for Paris Saint Germain. Kang In Lee continued showing great glimpses on the pitch for Paris Saint Germain and concluded the season with 5 goals and 5 assists, including an important assist versus Real Sociedad away in the UEFA Champions League, an important goal in the Trophée du Champion that gave Kang In Lee his first club trophy, the Trophée du Champion, including winning the MVP for that final. He also won the Coupe de France and the Ligue 1 titles. So Kang In Lee added 3 titles to his trophy cabinet at Paris Saint Germain. It was a successful season in terms of trophies, but not really in terms of playing time. Kang In Lee only started 24 games and played 2,077 minutes that season, which is 24 out of 53 starts and 2,693 minutes out of 4,770. It was clear that he was not rated enough at Paris Saint Germain as a starter. He was mostly a squad rotation, and there were some valuable excuses, as going with the international team for some tournaments and also being sidelined some moments. But Kang In Lee had it very tough in his first season at Paris Saint Germain in terms of starting minutes. Luis Enrique, since January, had gone with Kylian Mbappé, Ousmane Dembélé, and Bradley Barcola as his front 3. So the future was a bit uncertain for Kang In Lee at Paris Saint Germain. These were reports that dropped last summer. Breaking: PSG has rejected an offer worth 70 million euros from a Premier League club for Kang In Lee. PSG does not want to sell the South Korean. Kang In Lee also does not want to leave PSG since he feels very good at the club and in Paris. So other clubs were already looking at Kang In Lee's situation at Paris Saint Germain, attempting a 70 million bid, most probably from Newcastle United. But Paris Saint Germain's stance was clear: we do not want to sell Kang In Lee, even at a 70 million price. And even from Kang In Lee himself, he wanted to stay at Paris Saint Germain. Another report came out just in Saudi Arabia is interested in Kang In Lee. They're expected to make a huge bid to PSG soon and want to make Lee one of the best players in the Saudi league. Lee feels good in Paris and doesn't plan to leave. PSG doesn't want to sell him either. And the same stance continued. Kang In Lee is untouchable for PSG. PSG left the negotiation for Osimhen when Napoli asked for Lee to be included in the possible deal. After initially asking for Osimhen's release clause, after that moment, PSG never considered making a bid for Osimhen. Kang In Lee is hoping to do much better this season at Paris Saint Germain compared to last season, as he now knows the club, the coach, the city, his teammates better. PSG is also counting on Lee after already having a rejected 70 million offer from the Premier League club. And Kang In Lee even added in some interviews: first of all, the city is magnificent. When I signed here, it was the first time I've been to Paris. Last season, I discovered places that only seen in photos. Now my family and I have settled down and we feel really at home here. And that's the most important for me. What all of this tells us is, yes, Kang In Lee had some of a frustrating first season at Paris Saint Germain, but he fought through and was willing to fight next season. Paris Saint Germain, similarly, they saw Kang In Lee as a good player. Having some adaptation problems in his first season is not that big of an issue. I wanted to continue the story with Kang In Lee. And with Kylian Mbappe's departure and the only attacking replacement being Desiree Doué, the future for Kang In Lee at Paris Saint Germain looks brighter than it ever had. And the start to Kang In Lee's second season at Paris Saint Germain started off beautifully, playing and starting in the first game versus Le Havre and scoring the first goal of the game, which was one of the quickest Ligue 1 goals of all time. He kept up the great momentum, including some great performances versus Stade de Rennes, was even performing and playing for Paris Saint Germain in the biggest stage in the UEFA Champions League. Everything was going great for Kang In Lee. He was performing, he was playing more than last season, and he was contributing more than last season, including once again winning the Trophée du Champion versus Monaco in January. And at that point, as I said, everything looked great for Kang In Lee, starting 13 out of 23 games and playing 1,299 minutes out of 2,070 available minutes. But after that, everything was starting to go downhill for Kang In Lee. Desiru, as I mentioned before, started absolutely cooking for Paris Saint Germain, and Khvicha Kvaratskhelia was signed to Paris Saint Germain. So even tougher competition for Kang In Lee, potentially even tougher than last season, despite Kylian Mbappe being at the club. And Kang In Lee's minutes went down to 12 out of 21, starting 1,100 minutes out of 1,890. And the future for Kang In Lee once again looked question mark. Reports as early in January, Arsenal very much appreciate Kang In Lee, and PSG has already received multiple inquiries from several other clubs for Lee. However, PSG has no plan to sell Kang In Lee, and he will reject all offers this January. Luis Enrique values Lee very highly. Once again, clubs interested in Kang In Lee, but Paris Saint Germain and Kang In Lee being absolutely firm with their decision. He doesn't want to leave, and we do not want to sell him. This was in January, but everything was about to change. PSG is open to Kang In Lee leaving this summer, but not at any price. A point will be made at the end of the season between the two parties. Kang In Lee wants more playing time, especially in big matches, but he's staying quiet about it since the team is winning. The club and his camp would talk at the end of the season regarding his future. PSG are open to selling him, but only on their terms. Summarize everything regarding Kang In Lee at Paris Saint Germain. Kang In Lee was an absolute baller at Mallorca and is still a baller. But the move to Paris Saint Germain potentially is too big for Kang In Lee's shoes. The competition at the club is absolutely tough and immense, and there are some valuable excuses that have been hurting Kang In Lee's time at Paris Saint Germain, including injuries and having to go and play for the South Korean national team during the season. But what we've seen, what we can take away from all of this is that Kang In Lee, quality-wise, just isn't at the right quality. He's not good enough to compete with a player like Ousmane Dembélé, but he's a bit too good to just rot on the bench, and Kang In Lee's future at the moment looks to be away from Paris Saint Germain. I think Kang In Lee has been a great squad rotation these past 2 seasons, contributing in the league, in the domestic cups, and even in the UEFA Champions League. I'm also very happy for Kang In Lee winning his first club trophies. Obviously, Ligue 1 last season and this season, Trophée du Champion last season and this season, Coupe de France last season, hopefully this season, and who knows, hopefully the UEFA Champions League. And then Kang In Lee will be looking to move away from Paris Saint Germain. It's not just the performances from Kang In Lee, it's also the shirt sales. Kang In Lee has earned Paris Saint Germain so much money from shirt sales and sponsorships from the South Korean market. Kang In Lee was famously sold the most shirts for Paris Saint Germain last season, even ahead of Kylian Mbappe, which he was really insecure about. But Kang In Lee has done his best, has tried his best, but I think he's too good to be a bench player, but not good enough to be a starter at Paris Saint Germain. Kang In Lee, thankfully for him, has a lot of interest from across Europe top 5 leagues. I most likely see him going to the Premier League, similarly to Heung-min Son, who obviously made the move there and has been in the Premier League ever since then. Kang In Lee has been very great for us. Great signing. We only picked it up for 20 million, and we could potentially sell him for 50 to 70 million. So from Paris Saint Germain's perspective, this was a great business deal. This was a great player to sign. As I said, Kang In Lee has contributed in these past 2 seasons, gave us money, a lot of money throughout the season, and will give us money now that he leaves the club. But Kang In Lee should be really happy, winning all of his trophies, a lot of mentality. Training with the likes of Ousmane Dembélé and all these players will only make Kang In Lee better. And he had to make the big step from Mallorca to Paris Saint Germain. And as I said, he may even win an UEFA Champions League here, which will obviously, he will become one of the first South Koreans since Chin Park at Manchester United. But yeah, the future of Kang In Lee looks to be away from Paris Saint Germain. I will be updating you with all potential transfers regarding Kang In Lee moving away from Paris Saint Germain. In my opinion about this, it's simple. Kang In Lee is good. Kang In Lee has done great stuff for this club, but I think it's time to move on. Last season, he couldn't cement himself as a starter at Paris Saint Germain. Him and us gave each other a second chance, and once again, it didn't work. The competition is just too tough at Paris Saint Germain, and Kang In Lee, unfortunately, cannot match that. One thing though we can say about Kang In Lee is Paris Saint Germain haven't used him to his best ability. A lot of times playing him as a right winger, knowing that Kang In Lee is not that player. But whenever Kang In Lee has played in the central areas, such as central midfielder, defensive midfielder, or even right beneath the attackers, he's performed much better. So it's just very unfortunate sometimes for Kang In Lee. He's not being put in the best position for him to perform and showcase his ability at the highest level. So it could potentially be seen as a if. What if it could have gone different for Kang In Lee at Paris Saint Germain? But I think both Paris Saint Germain or Kang In Lee are happy to end this adventure. Kang In Lee, these 2 years have been extremely crucial and important for the rest of his footballing career. And Paris Saint Germain made a great deal signing Kang In Lee. That's been it from your boy PSG, and hopefully, guys, have enjoyed this video. And as usual, allez, 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 Paris.